Hi everyone, I'm Audrey Large. I'm a French designer based in the Netherlands, and I graduated from the Design Academy in 2017, and now I'm currently pursuing my researches at the Jan van Eyck Academy in Maastricht. So, yeah, maybe first I'm gonna present a bit how I approach design and my view on crafts, and then I'm gonna present to you one project of mine that I'm still developing. So I have an independent design practice that may be freed from any kind of industrial constraints or request, would rather use the object and the function as a pretext or as a vehicle to give a kind of reflection or point of view on the world we are modestly like on the world we are living in. So design for me became something other than problem-solving driven approach, and became maybe something, maybe a space for reflection. And I would say that I position my practice in an interdisciplinary form of design that uses digital cinema and image theory as a field of research to rethink object design methodologies. So I will start by showing you some images, since they were at the beginning of my research and that are still relevant for me now. So here you can see a scene of Game of Thrones where the actress is interacting with a dragon. And what is interesting to me is that in the backstage of the movie, the actress is actually interacting with a pillow. And so this is an interesting question. So what is the status of this object? It's a kind of a shape without property, without function, a kind of non-object, but with that carry in it many potential digital lives that are going to be added afterwards by many layers of post-processing, replaced by a computer-generated image, so a dragon. And secondly, I'm going to show you this picture, which is as well a before-after. And so here you can see a woman wearing contouring. As you may know, this is a makeup technique that is very trendy since a few years now. And it consists in enhancing the structure of a face by adding shadows or light. And it's a technique that comes from photo shooting or cinema makeup. And yeah, so it works very well on Instagram, maybe a bit less in real life. And I at that time, like 2 years ago, I was really into this kind of visuals and visual effects breakdown video, and somehow they both represent the same mechanism to me. They both, whether it is through social medias or through blockbuster series, witness the very fact, as Ito Sterian mentioned, that life has become a video installation in which each entity, constantly recorded, became a moving image, living for and transformed by the camera eye. And finally, one could say that reality appears to be a kind of total visual effect movie, kind of mix of computer-generated images superposed to an analog reality, distorted by an ongoing series of visual effects. Somehow, yeah, a reality of the surface, of the composite image, and of the representation. So this was an interesting design question for me. What's left in the hand of the object designer when we are facing the fear of the total dematerialization of our surroundings? And so I try to think a bit beyond pessimistic and futuristic scenarios to focus on on the now, and I and as well other people would argue that on the contrary, we are becoming more and more material, but another kind of materiality, a materiality that would be freed from the obsolete dichotomy of the true object and the simulacra of its representation. So a materiality that would, as you spoke about, Delaney, that would envision objects as images and images as objects. So in this way, image theory appears to be a relevant lens to rethink object design methodologies and to deconstruct the moving image making process in order to understand their underlying process of transformations, which are conditions which are transformations that are conditioning our way to perceive the world. So I would say that my work is looking at the keys of this new materiality, and I propose through my practice to embrace this ambiguous state of being by treating matter like moving images. So to say that objects have become images and images are objects ask first to redefine the statute of matter. So what is a material? And it secondly asks for then, if matter is an image, rethink the tools to transform this material. And finally, the statement asks to rethink the notion of crafts in the context of exponential digitization. So if you ask me what would be my favorite material, I would not answer wood or metal, and you would ask me 2 years ago what if I would be invited in this kind of event, and I would never expect. But definitely, as an object designer, my main material is digital images, whether they would be still or moving, and somehow I would say that I design files. So my work explores the potential of digital image manipulation processes applied to the design of our surroundings. And I try, in general, to bridge image or filmmaking techniques with digital to material manufacturing processes. So there are 2 ways of working with these tools, or you, as a designer, get submitted to a software where you would embrace the errors and of this software, and where you would orchestrate or repurposing softwares, or you can use the digital space as a space for creative freedom. So this is how I started the project called Implicit Your Face. So yeah, basically I started to intuitively draw in 3 dimensions with a pen and a graphic tablet. And it would be like I get lines on a white paper, but instead of these lines, I would get 3-dimensional files that I could turn around, and that carries within them their own set of materiality. So this technique is borrowed from animation cinema. Like the creators, they used to for instance, they use it as a more fluid technique to design characters for animation or elements of their environment. And instead of using the digital space as this quest of reproducing the reality, I thought I could use it to actually embrace these other fantasies that is created by movies or animation or gaming, and it's the fantasy of everything can happen in the digital world, which we accept pretty well when we look at movies, but maybe a bit less when it's speaking about our material surroundings. So from a designer perspective, it was quite liberating. In the 3D software, I would be freed of any notion of scale, gravity, weight. I could even cross the skin of the 3D models to modify them from the inside. And I started to create a huge repertoire of shapes. And this is when I started to materialize them by 3D printing. So once 3D printed in this iridescent material that is PLA, so there is no coating or paint on this object. The surface of the object reveals a kind of bas-relief in. So I like to think the object as a monochrome, but the actual surface is revealing in shadows and light what's the surface in itself. And so I don't try to explain that much what I'm actually drawing on the surface of these objects. Indeed, the artifacts articulate the codes of digital aesthetic, but as well cartoons, as well pottery carved by ancient pottery carved by aliens. But I'm more interested in what is interesting to me is to actually set up a sensitive attraction between the viewer and the object, the user and the object, as well as creating a desirable tension in between the work and its direct environment. So the object finally seems surreal, unreal, and but at the same time they are very tactile illusions. So instead of fixing them into a fixed narrative, I actually like to create this object that are resisting to language, that you cannot really describe, and that at the first sight you don't really know from what they are made of, what are their weight. If a lot of people ask me if it's fabric, and that are actually asking a question inside of a space, I would say. So I like to set up this kind of confusion towards material. And on the other hand, what is interesting is that I use the function as the last bulwark towards the total abstraction of the object. You could tell me that these objects could stay as a sculpture, as they are, but I like that they carry with them the full lineage of the archetype, and that you can look at them through their function and start to position them in different kind of familiar environment. And this is here where tension is being created. So it's still a project that I'm developing. Here I'm going to show you more pictures. On the right is render, and on the left is an actual 3D printed object. Yeah. Here is a render. So here you can see the contrast of an object placed inside of a real environment. And details. So I like to use maybe ancient archetype of objects, such as fontaine or vase or chess game. So what I think at the end is that my work as a designer intervene maybe in two steps. First, I design a file, and so I draw a file, and a second time I set up the rules of their materialization. And my question in general is which kind of information can carry a file? And there is no in a file, there is no information about the scale, for example. So if an object can be 3D printed in a very small scale, then it becomes a jewelry, but it can as well become a vase, or it can as well become an architecture. And I'm really interested in this kind of a translation. Here's some close-up. Yeah, and I guess I said it all. Yeah. Thank you.